This is going to be a world record, Olympic record performance. Okay. Coming up. What am I talking about? Coming up. Media audit companies in the US launch new contract services.
And the biggest pitch in the US is resolved.
Hello and welcome to IDCom's Media Snack, episode 39. So we've got a few things to talk about this week. It's nice to be back.
Yes, welcome
I had the very wonderful Gail Noah on last week. I thought that was really interesting. But anyway, I'm back before you go on holiday. All right, 2 weeks. We're going to talk about a couple of things. We've got both K2 and Ebiquity, which we've talked a lot about. But in the US, they've actually both launched, on the back of the A&A reporting that's come out, they've both launched kind of specialist services, I think, to take advantage of perhaps the insights or the exposure that they've had. So we're going to dig into that, why they're doing it and what the implications might be.
And AT&T have awarded their $2 billion media business to Hearts and Science.
So all coming up in today's IDCom's Media Snack in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich.
Okay, so before we start talking about K2 and Ebiquity, I want to just talk a little bit about your cameo performance in a campaign-developed video called Trust in Crisis, right? Yeah. And you were in some pretty esteemed company in that video.
I was. It was quite. We'll link to it. It's a documentary, a short documentary, just about trust in the advertising industry. Yeah. It says in crisis, and we talked about that quite a lot, in crisis. But I was approached by them to see if they could interview me, because we've just done a lot of work around trust and transparency in media, and obviously with the A&A reporting and ISBA reporting and other things, I think we've got a good perspective on that. So when I was in Cannes, or we were in Cannes in June, I got interviewed in blinding sunlight, actually. So you can see me kind of squinting at the camera.
And you were sweating a little bit.
I was sweating a little bit. It was quite a warm afternoon. But I'm delightfully sandwiched between Cindy Gallop and Claire Beale in the documentary. So that's
could have been worse.
Which is terrifying.
It could have been Johnny Hornby and Martin Sorrell.
Yeah, it could be, exactly.
Because they were on it as well.
Keith
Weed was in it.
Keith Weed.
It was the great and good of the marketing and media community.
Yeah, it's really interesting and a great initiative, I think, and it's fantastic just to get people talking about big issues and to do that in a very engaging way. And it's a great little bit of film, really easy to watch. Sets out the agenda, how important trust and transparency is. And I think, you were saying earlier this morning, it's just got an air of positivity around it, which again, we really appreciate.
Yeah, and I think the sense was that, no one discipline or stakeholder is going to solve these kind of trust issues, and that everybody collectively has to be involved and be very positive in it. And I think that was the message that came out of the documentary. So well done.
Cool. Okay, so back on the agenda.
Yes.
In the US, K2 Intelligence, who we've talked about a lot.
Yes.
Corporate investigation firm. And Ebiquity, the media auditor.
Yeah.
These are the two companies, as you'll remember, that collaborated on the kind of rebate report, media transparency reporting on behalf of the A&A. Now, both of these companies have announced that they are going to launch specialist media kind of advisory bits of their business. Yeah. K2, not a media specialist, but they've learned a huge amount, obviously, going through this process, have set up a specialist division.
Yes.
They've already been contracted by Chase, which we talked about, I think, on a few episodes back, because Chase had engaged K2 to do a kind of compliance audit or some kind of audit on Zenith Optomedia, which was Zenith in the US, their agency there. So they're already engaged on that scope. And then strangely, Ebiquity have also then announced that they are setting up a specialist media contract kind of service.
So both of these companies have spotted obviously a big opportunity to expand their current kind of service portfolio. K2 have gone down the transparency audit route, which
Yeah.
they previously didn't have a service for.
Yeah.
And Ebiquity have just announced that they are going to go down the kind of contract management route. So the moment Ebiquity essentially offer two things. They offer media auditing or benchmarking and contract compliance through their firm decisions partners. Now what they're doing is they're partnering with a legal firm, and they are helping clients develop and create media robust contracts.
Yeah.
Right, so essentially they're kind of ticking all of those kind of three boxes.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting entry point. I mean, as a client, I would appreciate the fact that I have a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So I have a go-to company that can provide three critical elements. But equally, I would worry whether that's too cozy. These areas are so important for me as a client.
Yeah.
I would want to make sure that I am using the services of those that deliver absolutely best in class.
Yeah.
And as long as they can reassure clients that those services are best in class, then I think they'll probably do very well.
Yeah. And I think in the past, around particularly these areas around, you know, drafting contracts, implementing contracts, and then doing compliance checks on contracts, where there have been companies offering more of an end-to-end service or multiple parts of that service, there's been accusation that it potentially creates conflicts of interest. Not that there necessarily is in this case. Because if you're creating a contract, you may not be the right person or the right organisation to then test its implementation, because if you found a gap in the contract, you may turn a blind eye to it because actually you wrote the contract. So you might not be able to do really fully the scope that you're being asked to do by the client. And so sometimes it's best to separate them out.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think that sense of objectivity is something that is so precious in these areas, these very sensitive areas. But obviously they've seen an opportunity in the marketplace. They have very well established reputations in compliance and in media benchmarking, and have a client base that obviously needs help designing and developing their contracts.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes down in the marketplace. And finally today, AT&T, the massive telecoms business, has just awarded their media and creative business to Omnicom Group, right?
Yeah, they have. I mean, this is the resolution of the biggest pitch so far, certainly in the US. It's about $2 or $3 billion in terms of media spend. I mean, what's $1 billion here or there? It's quite big. What was really interesting about this is that AT&T's business has been managed by WPP for a number of years, and they've lost the business, to a startup agency called Hearts and Science. If that name sounds familiar, it's because that was the agency that won the P&G business in the US, if you remember, from last year, which was a massive coup. Yeah, right. And Hearts and Science was set up by Omnicom in order to pitch for the P&G business. So that was basically created around the needs of P&G. Yeah. Very few months later, Hearts and Science, this same startup agency, has landed AT&T, one of the top 10 US advertiser, which makes Hearts and Science now one of the largest agencies in the US in the space of about 10 months, which is phenomenal success. So congratulations. It's clearly a model that's attractive to some big complex advertisers. It's a clear point of difference. I can imagine it's sending chills down the back of all the other agency groups in the US, because the proposition here, which AT&T have said, melded together some kind of smart data science and creativity and media all together. And it's obviously proving to be hugely successful.
That's right. I mean, this is an agency that has two clients, yet a cumulative billing base of 8 billion, and it launched in April.
Yeah. It's the most high-profile example of something that we've been talking about quite a lot, which is, the future of media agencies, is that we think that there is huge scope and potential for the future media agencies to be born within the existing networks. The landscape is changing, clearly it's changing, which we've talked about a lot. But an agency like Hearts and Science can be born from within.
Absolutely.
It doesn't need to be, a startup or an acquisition. I think we'll see agency groups start to experiment with models a bit more like this, maybe making some seed acquisitions that then become bigger agency propositions because they can be more flexible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So congratulations to them. What are they going to win next? See. Okay, that's all for this week. Please subscribe to the channel or give us a thumbs up to be updated with new content. Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.